Our learning target today, I will be able to interpret and create dot plots. A dot plot is a graphical display using dots. Graphical here does not mean that it's going to look like a graph. It actually represents it's a picture display using dots. So if I asked students how long does it take you to eat breakfast, and I got these results of minutes and people. You see how confusing it looks when there's just a bunch of numbers. So an easier way to display that data would be in a dot plot. So here I have my minutes, and we need a title. Minutes to eat breakfast. Along the bottom, you notice that I labeled this minutes, and these dots represent the students. So from my data up above, when I saw the number for 0 minutes, there were 6 people, so I put 6 dots. At minute 1, there were 2 people, so I put 2 dots. You see the arrow here that shows no dots for a number means 0. So that means for minutes 6 and 7, no students responded with that amount of minutes to eat breakfast. The center of the dot plot is found by finding the middle dot in the data. This can be found by counting from both ends until you reach the middle dot. We're going to do that up above. How you do that is you start crossing off left, right, left, right. It doesn't matter if you cross off top or bottom, as long as it's a left-right motion to find where the center dot is. The center happens at 5 minutes in this particular dot plot. Now we're going to define a few more pieces of vocabulary that might assist you during this dot plot. So median is also considered the middle dot. The most is where we find, or mode is where we find the most dots. Mode and most start with MO, that's usually easy to remember. So in our dot plot here, 10 would be the answer of where I find the most dots, so 10 minutes. For range, range happens to do with the bottom scale, so it's the high number minus the low number. And in this case, it would be the minutes that we're talking about, so 12 minus 0 would be 12. That would be the range. Cluster is where we find the most dots. This is different than the mode because mode asks you for one answer, where cluster could be where there's a lot of the dots all together. Gap is where we're missing dots. In this case, 6 and 7 would be where there's a gap. And outliers are away from all the other dots. In this case, there are no outliers in this dot plot. If you had someone say they ate breakfast in 20 minutes, that would be an outlier. For Frequency tables can be used to organize data by using tally marks. We have this data here that I want on a dot plot, but before I create the dot plot, I'm actually going to take this information and put it into a frequency table. And then from there, I can create the dot plot much easier. So before I start the frequency table, I want to look at my range of numbers here. It looks like the lowest number I have in my data is 5, and the highest number I have is 10. So that is how I'm going to create my frequency table. This table needs labels. Books read, this is where the numbers are going from 5 to 10. I'm going to skip 9 because there's no data for 9, and I'm just going to put 10. The middle is where I will put my tallies. So every time I see a number, I'm going to put a tally. And frequency will be totaling up how many tally marks there are. So as I'm reading the numbers, I'm going to place a tally. So I have a 6, a 5, a 6, a 10, an 8, a 10, a 5, a 10, a 6, a 5, a 5, a 7, a 10, a 7, and a 10. Every time you get to the fifth tally, it's a slash across, it's not an extra line. Now I total up for the frequency. I have 4 at 5, 3 at 6, 2 at 7, 1 at 8, and 5 at 10. Now from there, the frequency also tells me how many dots I'm going to need at each of those books read. I need a title, books read. I need my numbers along the bottom, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This time I'm not going to skip 9 because there's no data there, which is going to show that there's actually a gap there. So at 5, I need 4 dots. At 6, 3. At 7, 2. At 8, 1. 9, nothing. And 10, I need 5. To find the median, I will start crossing off left, right, left, right. Okay, so the median is at 7. Mode is where I see the most dots. I see the most dots at 10. Cluster is a series of numbers where I see the data, the most dots. And I would say that in this area of the graph, I see the most dots. So the cluster is between 5 and 7. And the gap is at 9.